Hi, this is Bill Sipper. I gave a presentation this morning at BevNet Live in New York City, and didn't have enough time to get through it like I would like to. And on top of that, I didn't realize they weren't going to record the video. So I wanted to record the video and take you guys through the presentation and hopefully clarify a couple things that couldn't clarify at the time. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it will give me the right screen. And I call this everything you always wanted to know about the beverage industry, but were afraid to ask. Just remember a couple things, like there are really no dumb questions. You're starting out, you're not expected to learn. If you're a neurosurgeon, I'm certainly not going to understand the verbiage that you use. You don't need to understand, things that you don't understand will help you. That's number one. Number two, if you want we have a glossary of terms which kind of like, for example, you'll hear DSD a lot. DSD means direct store distributor. So we have like a whole 2-page thing of terms, glossary of terms. If you want that, just email me at bill@cascadiafoodbev.com, and I'm happy to send that to you. So let's jump in. So what is Cascadia? Who are we? Why are we relevant? Our partners have over 75 years plus in C-level and leadership position at companies like Avion, Naked Juice, Fresh Samantha Odwalla, Nantucket Nectars, etc. We've run company-owned distribution companies nationwide 3 times. We do brand management and consulting for companies, including Liquid Death, Hint Water, Zico Coconut Water, Rainwater, C2O Coconut Water, Steez, etc. We have done strategic consulting for InBev, Budweiser, Coca-Cola, Bain & Company, etc. And we have experience in the US, South and Central America, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Australia. We currently sell to over 350 DSD distributors, plus UNFI and KeHE, as well as 127 distributors outside the US. And we obviously call on all the major supermarket and convenience store chains. So let's talk about distribution for a minute. There are various ways to go to market through different types of distributors and different channels. Most of you will be working with DSD distributors, direct store-to-door distributors. You can identify them because you'll see them on the road. Some will have Budweiser on their trucks, some will have Miller Coors on their trucks, some will have Coca-Cola or Pepsi Cola on their trucks, Dr. Pepper Snapple, etc. And when I say on their trucks, I mean like they're decaled with those logos and bottles, etc. That is by far the best form of distribution, but it's also the most expensive and most difficult. The second channel that most of you will also deal with is the natural specialty channel. And you will probably sell to UNFI and KeHE, who are the 2 largest natural specialty food distributors in the country. And they will then help you sell it to customers like Wegmans and Publix and, et cetera, et cetera. Some of you will be lucky enough, if you don't have a full nationwide coverage for DSD, and you probably won't, to use some convenience store distributors for your products, because convenience stores are starting to take in more expensive and healthier products. But there's also wholesalers where basically you sell to them and they already have an authorization from a chain, or you get the authorization from the chain and the chain says, I want to go through this wholesaler. All they do is deliver the product, essentially. There's food service distributors. There's, channel like direct to retail, meaning you would sell it directly to a chain's warehouse. There are fewer and fewer of those around the country. And you really have to have a high velocity item for it to warrant going into that direct to retail, into their warehouse. E-com is also a channel. And most of you will be doing a combination, a hybrid of DSD and natural specialty. So what are the roles of everybody here? So you are the brand owner. You are going to sell your product most probably to a distributor. The distributor is going to sell it most probably to a retailer or customer, and that is where the consumer will buy your product. Okay, but distributors and retailers need to be sold. Primarily, distributors and retailers are constantly thinking about what's in it for me. Okay, very few care about the features and benefits of your product. They will, but first you have to convince them of what is in it for them. And too often people try to sell their products to distributors and retailers like they would sell them to consumers. For the most part, buyers don't care if your product is bigger, better, cheaper, unique, looks better, tastes great, healthy. That's important to the consumer. What's in it for me is what the distributor and the retailer need you to tell them. And for the most part, not 100%, but for the most part, what drives them, what's important to them is profit. How much money can I make selling your product? Why should I, take room in my warehouse for your product and possibly have to get rid of another product? Okay. So you need to sell your distributors, and your sell sheet is never going to be seen by a consumer. So focusing on what's in it for the distributor and the retailers. What's your way to market? So there's a lot of things to plan. One is distribution model. And when you think of your distribution model, you need to think in terms of where am I today and where will I be tomorrow? Because it's quite normal to start with a small distributor. And let's say that distributor is, let's say they're in Los Angeles and they have 3,000 accounts. The larger distributor may have 10,000 accounts. And at some point you may outgrow your distributor and you may want to move to a bigger distributor. So that's why I say you have to think about it today and you have to think about it tomorrow. You need to think about if you're going to sell through the natural specialty distributors like UNFI and KeHE, or if you're going to focus exclusively on DSD distributors. As I said earlier, it's probably going to be a hybrid network. You may have an opportunity to sell to wholesalers who will sell to the retailers. Are you going to hire a brand management company, or you're going to have an in-house sales staff, or like a lot of companies, both in the beginning? Will you have brokers involved? What channels of distribution will you focus on? What geographic territory will you focus on? Is e-commerce a priority? You have to also think and plan about consumer trial and awareness, advertising, promotions, public relations, social media and influencers, coupons, scan downs, in-store sampling, special events, guerrilla marketing. And on the operations, logistics, and finance side, you need to think about, do you have the necessary funding and cash flow? Where do you get money? Where do I warehouse my product, and what trucking companies do I use to get my product from my production facility to a warehouse, and then from a warehouse to my distributors? You have to think about ordering, invoicing, and accounting. And I'm telling you, everyone, it's not brain surgery. So just because there's so many things on this page, don't get overwhelmed. You can handle it, okay? And if you can't handle it, that's what companies like Cascadia are for, and that's what other consultants are for. And also, you're gonna try things and they're gonna work, and you're gonna try other things and they won't work, and you're gonna change and adapt. So I don't know anyone that was a rocket scientist coming out of NASA that went into the beverage business. Okay, it's all normal people, and normally the most successful people are the folks that didn't start in the beverage industry. They came up with an idea. Okay, so what questions should you ask a distributor? Well, you need to know the number of salespeople. One distributor could have 4 salespeople. If you take UNFI, they probably have 750 salespeople. Number of supervisors. You need to know how the salespeople and supervisors are compensated. Why do you need to know that? Because when you're creating an incentive program for the first 60 days of your distribution, you want to try and get them focused on your brand, and therefore what's in it for them. How are they compensated? Can you double their commission for 60 days? Can you give them $1 a case for all the cases they sell in 60 days? Can you try something like $10 for every new account on a key account list? There are different ways to scale it, or different ways to present it, but you do need to know how they're compensated first. For example, if they're not paid commission, it would be really hard to double their commission. So you need to think about what's the best way to incentivize them to sell your products. And remember, it's about selling your products into the right accounts. There used to be a distributor in California, and inevitably, you would get 100 accounts, 100 liquor stores, no less, to buy your product because you're running a promotion and you are running an incentive. And inevitably, every brand would get the same 100 liquor stores that couldn't help you really sell your product. They were both, really small, not the best liquor stores. And the salespeople used to go over to the liquor store owner and say, look, I'm getting $10 for every new account. I'll give you $5 for every brand you take. So you want to be in the right accounts, and you want to incentivize people to put you in the right accounts. You want to know from the distributor, what have been the best promotions that they've run and incentives that they've run and why. And don't reinvent the wheel. If they have a good program that they believe is going to work, think about it. What's the process for riding with their salespeople? This is a really important factor. There are lots of manufacturers and very few salespeople. So you really should find a distributor, especially a DSD distributor, that will let you work with their salespeople. And what you want to accomplish with their salespeople is train them, befriend them, get to know the ins and outs of the distributor, etc. Find out what competitive lines they sell. Is there a telesell department, or is there an e-blast program? Can you incentivize the telesell department? How many trucks do they have? How many trucks are decaled? How do you get decals on one of their trucks? You need to know all the contacts, orders, AP, AR, key account managers, key managers, salespeople, point of sales orders, etc. What other questions should you ask a distributor? What's the process of receiving monthly depletions by store, by SKU? Monthly depletions are the sales that a distributor makes to their customers, not how much product you ship them in a month, but how much they actually sell. And that is there's two major indicators of sales. One is depletions, and the other is same store sales versus year ago, or same time frame, or same store sales versus same time frame. Those are the real indicators of success or failure. So you need to understand the process to getting those depletions, and you need to make sure that they're a by SKU and by store. You need to have a no buy report. Customers who've purchased your product but have not purchased it in the last 90 days. Why? If they're good customers, you want to visit them. You want to have somebody visit them. You want to talk to the salespeople from the distributor about those particular accounts. If they're a bad account, well, the reality is maybe you shouldn't have been in there in the first place. But if it's a good account, don't walk away from it. Fight to get back in, fight to get better shelf space, fight to get merchandise properly. You probably want a key count target list. It's important that the retailers that they sell to, their chain, if they're independent, you have to know who the targets are. A lot of times we take a sales force and say, who are your top 10 accounts by volume? And we ask each salesperson the same question, and that becomes our key account target list. What are the distributor margin requirements? So, like I've said earlier today, the average, UNFI and KeHE work on about 28 to 33% margin, not markup. And DSD distributors typically work on 30 to 35% margin. Big distributors like New York City, in a market where, when I was at Naked Juice, I think we were paying $10,000 a month in parking tickets. Companies like Big Guys are asked for 40% margin. And the retail margin requirements is something that you need to understand as well, because some areas are different. And as I said, New York City independent delis, they work on a 50% gross margin. It's much higher than the rest of the country. Does the distributor require an exclusive distribution agreement and/or a buyout clause? What is a buyout clause in a distribution contract? The buyout clause states that if you want to terminate the distribution agreement for any reason, even if the distributor is in compliance with the agreement, you may terminate the agreement, but you need to pay a fee. The cost is usually 2 to 4 times the distributor's gross profit for the trailing 12 months. We've seen crazy proposed buyouts up to 8 times gross profits for a year on the West Coast. This is negotiable for the most part. Now, as you become bigger, this is very negotiable, but this is something, unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with up in the beginning. And to be quite honest, the first time I ever saw a buyout clause, it was when I was director of sales at Nantucket Nectars, and it came from Tom First, who was one of the co-founders and co-presidents, and he did it because he wanted the option to get out if we outgrew a distributor. He was a big forward thinker, really, really, really sharp. So that's why a manufacturer would want this. Why would a distributor want this? Well, unless they're Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Keurig, the smaller distributor knows that one day you might outgrow them, and they, rightfully so, want to be paid for their pioneering and building the brand. Never forget the importance of data. Data is your best friend. Even if you don't know how to use it well, it's still your best friend. And Edwards Deming said, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." Depletions are the one of two true indicators of sales performance. Okay, DSD distributors typically provide this information a few days into the following month, but here's the catch: you have to ask for the most part. A lot of the beer distributors, this is normal, they'll automatically send it to you, but you do have to ask all distributors for depletions. Too often, manufacturers don't ask their distributors for data or don't understand how to use the data to increase their sales. And again, what type of data do you want? You need sales by month, by quarter, by year, sales increase or decrease in dollars or percentages, sales per SKU, top states sold by month, sales by chain, sales by store, sales by SKU by store, number of stores sold by the month, top 10 customers, sales by channel, no buy reports. Things get done only if the data we gather can inform and inspire those in a position to make a difference. So with data, you don't have to understand everything. There are companies like the beverageanalytica.com, and they're just one company. There's others out there. What they do is they take that raw data that comes in an unreadable Excel spreadsheet, and they transfer it into what I'm showing you here, which is graphs and charts, which make it really, really easy to understand, and it's very well worth it. But there are other companies out there. I don't care which company you use, you should be using a company to do this, unless you are an Excel whiz and you know how to do this. All right. What questions should you ask a broker? Well, when would you want to hire a broker is another question. So in the natural specialty channel, if you go to Unify and Cahey and tell them you have the greatest product in the world and they're going to make a lot of money selling it, they're going to say, for the most part, they're going to say, bring me a big chain account, a big supermarket chain. Well, unless you have a lot of money for advertising and promotion, brands don't normally start out well in a supermarket chain. In fact, I can't remember one off the top of my head that beverage company that didn't start in cold bottle in the refrigerator in independent accounts first, or even convenience stores first. So if you're going to be in the natural food, specialty food industry, you will need a broker. And the reason why you'll need a broker is the broker needs to take your product, go out to 30 to, well, they'll probably go out to more, but they need to get a commitment from 30 to 50 independent retailers by warehouse of Unify and Cahey, and get a commitment from the retailer that they will buy the product when UNFI or Cahey bring the product in. They will take those orders, they will send it to Unify and Cahey, or in our case, they send it to us and we call on the buyer at Unify and Cahey. And then we say, listen, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, we have a list of 35 pre-commits for your Aurora warehouse. Would you consider bringing it in? Sometimes there's still pushback because they have very little time. They have very little warehouse space. Warehouse space is a killer for them. So, and retailers come to them all the time and say, I want you to take this product, and I want you to take that product. So they still may ask you for a chain. So if they ask you for a chain, try and fish where the fish are. Focus on the best chains, meaning Wegmans, Harris Teeter, Publix, HEB. On the West Coast, you have Lassen's and Bristol Farms and Gelson's and Berkeley Bowl, which isn't a chain, but it's a real great account. Focus on the better chain, Schnucks in the Midwest. But you want to ask a broker, do they work with other distributors besides UNFI and KeHE? They may not, and that's okay, but at least you know where you stand. Then you have to go out and get other distributors like DSD. Do they provide category review schedules? So if you're going to approach 99% of all supermarkets, they will have a review schedule when they look at products like yours. For example, I think it's enhanced water category review is right now at Whole Foods. And they're looking at mid-2023 to put the products on the shelves. So it's a very long lead, but you need to know when the review schedules are so you can follow up with your broker, your distributor, your Cascadia managing brands, whatever it may be, to make sure that somebody is presenting during the review schedule. Do they complete the required forms for authorizations and promotions? We complete them for our brands. Do they utilize scan down promotions, which basically is a digital coupon? And can you attend category review meetings with them? Listen, sometimes the buyers don't even want us at a category review meeting. They can get a lot more done with a broker. They can talk about 20 different lines with a broker. So sometimes it's more advantageous for them not to meet with you or meet with me even. But a lot of times we still do attend category review meetings. A lot of them by Zoom, by the way, which is fantastic because we don't waste the whole day traveling to the West Coast for 3 appointments and then coming back the next day. Is it bad to say no to a distributor, retailer, or broker? No. Great leaders are not judged by what they do. Great leaders are judged by what they don't do. Ken Romanzi, the CEO of Naked Juice, taught me that a long time ago. It's okay to say no. Be upfront. Can you give them a free container of product? No, I can't. I can't afford to do that. I'm not in that type of financial position. If I was, I would. So please, don't be afraid to say no, and be prepared to have a conversation about no. One of the things I tell all of our clients is that there's this concept that distributors really are like UPS in the beverage industry, especially when you're a startup. UPS is great at shipping, but they don't actually sell anything. Most large beverage distributors won't actually sell your product until your product becomes important to them. Ready? Remember what's in it for me? Think of distributors as UPS. In the beginning, be prepared to do all the sales for the distributor. If you help the distributor get to a certain point of volume, then they will start to sell your product. That's when you'll feel the true power of the distributor. Work one market and or one territory within a market at a time. So for example, break down New York City, break it down to all the different areas, Chelsea, Greenwich Village, downtown Brooklyn, etc., and focus on one area at a time and make your product a success in that area. Focus on the territories and the accounts where your product will sell the best. Merchandise your best accounts. It's really important that you go back and you help yourself get eye level to thigh level distribution. You want to be on the eye level to thigh level parts of the shelf. Anything above, anything below just can't be acceptable. Success breeds more success and failure breeds more failure. What are slotting or free fills, and do I have to pay for it? Most chains and some independents charge you for the pleasure of doing business with them. This is what it's called, slotting or a free fill. Traditionally, a free fill means that the chain will charge you one free case per authorized SKU per store at the price the distributor charges them, not the amount you charge the distributor. Slotting is the same. However, it can cost more than one case per SKU per store. And this is real money when you begin to multiply the cost the distributor charges the chain multiplied by the number of SKUs you want to sell the chain. And then multiply that number by the number of stores in the chain. Convenience stores usually charge a flat fee, which is usually more than one free case per SKU per store. What are slotting fees? Back of the envelope math. So if you had a fictional price to the distributor charges the chain of $20 and you wanted to get 4 SKUs in, and the chain had 2,757 stores, you would be writing a check for $220,560. Let's look at the bottom one. If it was $20, if the distributor charges the retailer $20 a case, and there's 248 stores and you want to get 4 SKUs authorized, that's 19,840. There are chains, the better chains, Wegmans, Publix, Walmart, do not charge slotting. Thought to self, independent accounts are critical for startups. Yes, it may be a free fill, but it's usually in the form of cases, which cost you a lot less. Slotting questions you need to ask yourself. Can I afford this? Strictly from a cash flow perspective. How many cases do I need to sell per week to break even? Does your target consumer even shop at these stores? Does your target consumer shop at each and every one of these stores or just some of these stores? Do you want to pay for slotting for stores where your target consumer doesn't shop? So you have to ask, can I pay for a slotting just for the chain's better stores where my consumer shops instead of paying slotting for the entire chain? Some chains have an easier time doing that than others. Some want you to be in all their stores or 80% of their stores or whatever the number is. Some other chains are more helpful, like Publix and HEB, for example. Sometimes they'll put you in 50 stores, and if you do well, they'll put you in 50 more stores, and if you do well, they'll put you in 50 more stores. And at that point, if you don't sell well, they'll keep you where you are. They're not going to try and move you to the next level if you're not progressing at the 3rd level of stores. How important is Whole Foods? Well, if your business plan is only Whole Foods, you don't have a plan. Things have changed there dramatically. There are a lot of national brands. There used to be, I think there was 12 or 14 regional buyers, and national used to buy some products. Today, I think they're down to 5 regional buyers. I don't call them Whole Foods, but I think they're down to 5 regional buyers. But national makes 90% of the decisions, what's going to go into the set. And because of that, even if a local buyer loves you, they have very little space to play with. And things have changed there dramatically. They're no longer leaders in early adoption. Shelf space is a premium, and most new authorizations come from Austin. Again, most regional buyers have been eliminated. There is a local program, and that is somewhat more flexible, and you should definitely look at that opportunity. What margin does a typical distributor work on? Most DSD distributors work on approximately 33% margin. Some better New York City distributors are now asking 40% margin, not markup, margin. Unify and KeHE work on 25 to 32% margin. In fact, I think that's a typo. It's 28 to 32%. Excluding key accounts like Whole Foods, for example, where they typically work on 8% cost plus. Be prepared. Unify and KeHE and DSD distributors have a lot of sales and marketing programs, and you will receive a lot of billbacks and deductions. So when you're signing that paperwork up front, understand what you're committing to. Okay, speak with someone who knows what they're doing in this instance, because you don't want to be spending money on marketing programs that you don't have to, or that aren't going to be good. Traditionally, supermarkets work on a 30 to 35% margin. Convenience stores usually work on a 40 to 45% margin. Typically, drug chains work on a 45 to 50% margin. Club stores usually work on about 11 to 13% margin. And as I said, New York City delis work on about 50% margin. Are all stores equal? No, you have to fish where the fish are. Find the areas in that territory, find the channels like the natural and specialty food channel where you think your product is going to perform the best. And that's where you focus, because 80% of your sales will always come from 20% of your customers. It's just, I don't know who wrote that. It's actually called the Pareto principle. I don't know how he came up with that principle, but it really works. It's worked for almost 35 years for me. Merchandising goal. Be next to your competition or where your consumer is looking. You need to know which brands your brand needs to be next to. That is something you need to be telling the buyers. I want to be next to Olipop. I want to be next to Sanzo. I want to be next to Snapple. Okay. You need to make that recommendation and hopefully show that visually in a presentation. You're looking for eye to thigh level placement, meaning your shelf is either at your eye level, all the way down to your thigh level, but not above and not below. In independent accounts, you want to try and get 3 to 4 pieces of point of sale in store, if possible. Usually we talk about on the front door, on the refrigerator, on the way to the cooler or shelf, not the day to the cooler or shelf, on the shelf, on the checkout counter, multiple SKUs on the shelf, and never settle for bad shelf space. I remember, again, Nantucket Nectars with Tom First. I think we were calling on either 7-Eleven or Circle K down in Florida. I think they had 700 plus stores at the time. And the buyer wanted to put us literally, I think it was on the bottom shelf. And, Tom said, no, I'm not, thank you. But he said respectfully, thank you, but no, thank you. I'm not going to take that shelf space. And the buyer was puzzled. He was like, why? He said, because if I take that shelf space, I'm not going to sell. And if I don't sell, I'm going to let you down. And we don't want to have a bad relationship. We want to have a good relationship. By the end of the conversation, he had convinced the buyer to take the Tropicana from the eye level shelf, move it to the bottom because everyone knows Tropicana, and put our product in the eye level shelf. What is your unique selling proposition? This determines whether a distributor, retailer, or consumer will purchase your product. And this is a really tough question. Is your unique selling proposition truly different? No one ever comes into my office and says, my product sucks, it tastes awful, and it's way too expensive. Everyone thinks they have the best product. They're passionate about it. But is it truly unique? And let me tell you, I don't believe friends and family are always going to tell you the truth about this concept. In order to secure shelf space, the retailer needs to discontinue something else. 93% of all beverage startups fail. So what is going to make your brand different and succeed? Let's take a quick look at some of the failures from big and large companies, big and small companies, who thought they had a unique selling proposition that it actually turned out to be not what the consumer wanted, right? So from these crazy named energy drinks in the top row, to Tropical Sprite, New Coke, one of the biggest failures ever, Coke Black, OK, Pepsi Blue, Crystal Pepsi. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Orbitz, Lifesaver soda, like mom wanted to go out and buy Lifesaver soda for a kid. So these people thought they had unique selling propositions, but they didn't. You need enough money to survive, and that's a fact. Most startup beverage companies are not profitable. The money in most beverage companies is in the exit. Vitamin Water, Bai, and Body Armor literally invested hundreds of millions of dollars, and they weren't profitable. They kept investing back into the brand, investing back with advertising, promotions, salespeople, etc. But they sold the company for billions. So they are doing or did something right. The longer a brand can stay on the shelf, the better the chance the consumer will notice them, and the better the odds of a brand succeeding. Snapple, which at one point sold for, I think, $4 billion, they were a 20-year overnight success story. Sparkling Ice also was around for almost 20 years, 17 years, I think it was, before people really started to look at them and say, gee, that product is everywhere. It's doing great. Some of these brands are profitable today, but they had to get through that bottom period of non-profitability, and you need enough money to survive. So where do I get my money? Well, friends and family is by far the best source of capital. They're going to give you the money. They're most of the time going to be hands off. They're going to let you do what you do best. And it's, fairly easy. Crowdfunding, usually for smaller amounts, less than $100,000. Angel investors, in my opinion, is the second best option. And there are a list of angel investors on Google. You just have to be persistent and show them that you have a unique selling position and you know what you're doing. And then, venture capital. And venture capital, they have high expectations. And if you do not do what they need you to do, if you don't hit the metrics, you may own a big piece of the company, but they will push you out. Rule of thumb, you're always going to need more money than you plan. I promise you. What metrics do investors look for? Well, they look at sales volume. They look at same-store sales. They look at units sold per day, per store, per SKU. They look at gross margin, although most understand that when you achieve scale, your gross margin will go up dramatically. They also know that people like Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Keurig have much more buying power than you. And therefore, if they sell the company to someone like that, they will be able to add a lot of gross margin. They look at the team that's involved and or advisors. At the end of the day, Peter DePasquale from Arena Partners, which is a big ad agency, he always tells me people invest in people. They don't buy brands. To a certain extent, he's right. People invest in people. Investors hate large geography. Focus on one channel or one market and make it work before you add additional markets. Social engagement and social growth. Those are the two newer factors that investors look for. Set your expectations correctly. What do you think you're going to achieve in the first 3, 6, and 9 months? The first year, the second year, the 5th year. How are you going to get from point A to point B? Are your expectations fair and reasonable within 80% of a chance of success? Here's my advice. Go slow and steady. Brands like Snapple and Sparkling Ice are 20-year overnight success stories. One market or channel at a time, and determine what is working and what is not working. Focus on what is working and change what is not working. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or call. Again, I'll send you the glossary of terms, and happy to walk anybody through this presentation if they need a little extra help. So yeah, that's my presentation for the day. A little bit longer than I expected at BevNet Live, but hey, we got it done. Thank you for your time.